I'm Chris Savino with American Outdoor News. I'm here with Frederick from Safari Club International, and today we're going to be talking about a heated debate about Florida reintroducing a bear season. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you having me on. Glad to
Yeah,
be
this
here.
is a hotbed discussion, long overdue, and I think it's going to have to pick up steam in the coming seasons.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an interesting issue. Obviously from our end on Safari Club International, we've been involved on bear hunting and bear issues across the country, really across the globe, but certainly across the country for a long time. And whether it's New Jersey or Alaska or Washington or wherever it may be, Florida for sure. It's a pretty ubiquitous issue for us as far as apex predator management.
Yeah.
And Florida bear hunting is no different. And so it's a certainly nuanced, just like a lot of issues are. But Florida, they had a hunt up until 1992, and then it was stopped then, and then they didn't have another one until 2015, and they had a one-off season in
Yeah.
2015. They closed it after that, and then are on the precipice of bringing it back now. So in a few weeks in North Florida, the FWC will meet to hopefully give final approval to what will be a bear season that could begin this fall. They have some options to look at as far as different alternatives that were approved at the last meeting back in May. But hopefully we're one step closer and basically on the doorstep of having an approved pretty limited, hard tag quota system bear hunt down in Florida. But, again, important issue for us, important issue for the sporting community, hunting community. And we're really hopeful that we'll see an approval at the FWC meeting in August and then a hunt this fall.
Well, the bear population has recovered substantially since the 70s in
Yeah.
Florida, and it's not well. It's been through science-based management, they were able to bring it back to a strong population, and it's to the point where you're seeing um, conflicts between humans and bears. They're just coming across each other, just like in New Jersey,
Yep.
where the
Yep.
population was not managed. The population exploded, and you couldn't put your kids out in the backyard without worrying about if a bear was going to come into the backyard.
Yeah, totally. It's certainly a public safety issue, but to your earlier point, I mean, the reason for that, in Florida in particular, there's some really great data down there. The FWC's done a great job of compiling excellent population data on bear population and kind of their trends and things like that. So from 2002 to 2015, the bear population expanded by 50%. So it doubled in
Yeah.
the first 15 years, after, again, roughly 2002 2015, it doubled. And then the important part is with that doubling population, the range. So the bears range in Florida grew from roughly 17% of the land mass or 17% of the state to over 50% of the state. So you have this large population of bears that are left unchecked, minus minus maybe some nuisance bears that the FWC may remove here and there, which there certainly are those. And now you have them across a much larger percentage of the state, a much larger percentage of the land mass. And
Yeah.
so naturally, to your point, you're having these increased conflicts. So it is a human wildlife conflict issue. It is a public safety issue. For example, in 2023, FWC received over 3,000 conflict calls. And then just in the last decade, so from 15, so the last hunt until now, and this data may be a year or two old, but over a 10-year time frame, last decade, the wildlife conflict calls grew by 42%. So not quite half, not quite double, but almost. So you're seeing this increase in human bear conflicts because of what we're talking about. The increased number of people moving to Florida, obviously we know that. And then the bear population has expanded. Not only has the population expanded, but their range has expanded. So you're seeing these conflicts happen, and incredibly unfortunate reality of having the first bear fatality earlier this year with the gentleman in Jerome and Collier County, like that, and that's an awful situation. But we see other conflicts, see other kind of things like that. So again, it's very analogous to New Jersey, where it became, this public safety issue. You have Governor Phil Murphy on record who's saying, who ran for governor, opposing the bear hunt or saying he was going to close it on public land, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then doing a complete 180 a few years later, saying, hey, this has gotten out of hand. This is a public safety issue, and well-documented way to manage bears is to have a controlled, highly regulated hunt. And they've done it in New Jersey for a few years. It's been successful. And we're hopeful to have a similar situation in Florida here approved in a few weeks.
Well, they're only looking to approve 187 tags.
Yep.
That, opens the door to a season. It's really not going to put a dent in the conflict issue, where people stumble across bears or bears stumble across people in their travels. It's not a lot.
I mean, hopefully it does at least, quell some of the conflict calls. I think it will. And a lot of it is, you have what's now, you mentioned 1970. So there were a few hundred bears on the landscape in the 1970s. Now there's over 4,000 bears in Florida. And we'd say that's probably on the low end of the population estimate. And so these bears now, there's a lot of them. They're habituated to people. And so, there's no fear there. There's no concern. They're certainly habituated. So having this limited hunt, again, it's 187 tags. 187 number is less than 5% of the total population. So it will not, even if every tag were filled, which is unlikely, but even if every tag were filled, that's not going to stop population growth. It's simply going to slow it down, slightly. Yep. Slow it down. So you'll still have an increasing population of bears. It just won't be as steep. It will just be going up at a slower rate. And again, that 187 is broken down. There's 4 bear management units. They have, again, great science, great data, and they divide those tags up based on the bear management unit, where it is in the state, how many bears they think they can harvest in each bear management unit. And actually, what's interesting, that 187 number is the most conservative they could do. They did it based off of female mortality, basically saying if every tag that we issued, a female bear was killed, which is like the likelihood of that happening is 0.
Yeah.
But if every tag were filled with a female, that could happen, and the population would still go up. So they made it as conservative as possible. So, of those 187 tags filled, if they're all filled, some will be boars and some will be sows. So you won't have all females taken there. And you can't harvest cubs. You can't harvest sows of cubs. You can't harvest a bear under 100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So they've put in some other guardrails. And again, it's simply just to slow the growth of an exploding bear population there.
Well, it's not uncommon for a sow to have 2 or 3 cubs.
Sure.
That population with that amount, it may slow it a little,
sure,
for a season, but it's not going to solve the problem.
No, and I'll go back to that 187 real quick. In 2015 they had a quota system, and there was more. That number was higher. I can't remember what it was. 380 something, 350 something. I can't recall exactly, and I should know. But they had a quota system where you had to report it, just like a lot of other states, where you report your harvest, and then they adjust the season accordingly, and they'll close it accordingly. And so they over harvested based on the projection, but obviously as soon as they hit it, they closed it. And so you'll hear a lot of folks today say, "Oh, this was, we're going to repeat 2015 or whatever," but that's impossible. Like, these are what they would call hard tags. So, if whomever, you and I, were to apply and you get it and I don't, you get a tag. You can't simply just go buy a license and the opportunity, the chance to go hunt a bear. You'd have to be a limited entry hard tag quota system where you get a tag and either you fill it or you don't. And so at the most possible highest number of tags to be filled would be 187.
All right. Well, they've been receiving a lot of resistance from the antis on this topic as well, who are also threatening to buy hunting licenses so they can slow down the hunt, so to speak.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I guess, kind of approach from the anti-hunting organizations. They're saying buy a bear tag, and we've seen that in other states, other maybe Western states where you have a makeup, you have maybe a stronger anti-hunting presence. I don't really know from our end what you do with that, but for them to do that, they're still supporting conservation, they're supporting hunting, and that's an argument as well. Just for the hunt is, this is certainly not like the key reason to do it, but anytime you're hunting something, you buy your license, obviously you buy, ammo, other gear, you buy your tag in this situation. And so it's all a part of the, American system of conservation funding where, hunters and anglers are providing these key conservation dollars through Pittman Robertson and then through the license sales system. And they are, supporting on the ground conservation delivery through FWC. So, if they do that, if they apply, that's, I guess part of the process. But, I think just like anything else, whether it's vehicle mortality or other things, I think, the agency will eventually, bake in the different layers of things impacting both applicants and, bears harvested and tagged and things like that. So it's just like managing any other wildlife. You have to take into
Sure.
account the different things impacting that.
Well, hunter conservation is a proven method.
Yep.
It works. It'll work in Florida, same as it works up here. I'm in New York.
Yep.
When we buy a license, we can take a bear per season, whether it's through archery, muzzleloader, or a rifle. I can't tell you how many years I've hunted and, not shot a bear.
Sure.
Granted, my hunting club, we had more bear than deer on the property.
Yeah.
But I would see bear, I don't know, probably a couple times a month when I was out there. It
Sure.
didn't mean I was shooting them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, every state that has, New York has a large bear population, Maine, huge, West Virginia, huge. So every state that has at least 1,000 bears has a regulated hunting season. So this isn't like a new model of wildlife conservation or a new model of sustainable use. This is something that's being done. It's being done effectively across the country.
Yeah.
And that we would argue is necessary really for the long-term survival, of bears. Because, with this, back to kind of where this conversation started, you have these bears now that are basically getting into unsuitable habitat. So the suitable habitat thing is really important. So you have them. That's why you see bears in neighborhoods or parks or, there's been videos of bears in the surf on the ocean, like on 30A or.
Yeah, I've seen that.
At the Orlando airport, or I think even in Disney, it's just where they're expanding into, again, it's unsuitable. So, you'd want to keep them in suitable habitat, for on the public safety side, but then also on the bear health side as well.
Sure. Yeah. What about the method of hunting that they're going to approve? Is it going to be only rifle? Is it going to be archery? Is it a combination? What is the season that they're looking to approve?
Yeah. So it's a combination right now. So they had different alternatives that were offered up at the May FWC meeting, and they were all approved. So one is archery is included. So basically again all the above. So it's rifle, shotgun, muzzleloader, archery, and then they have an alternative that currently is approved for hounding, running dogs, and they currently have an alternative that's approved for baiting as well.
Okay.
And this is how it's broken down. Those are listed as alternatives. So there'll be more discussion and then vote in August in a few weeks in North Florida at the FWC meeting in Havana on the proposal as itself, and then on FWC, the commissioners there can try to make changes or amendments to the overall rule there, and they'd likely be on those alternatives if they were to do it. And so, were that to happen, it would go back out for public comment. We're hopeful that it gets approved as is. It may not, but certainly that's what we support. We support the agency, the FWC down there, and kind of again the science-based management and trusting their expertise in managing this species. And so we're hopeful to see all of these things approved. We'll be there in person to support it, and we'll see kind of what the commissioners end up doing.
Is there going to be non-resident tags available?
What's that?
Is there going to be non-resident tags available?
Yeah, so it is open. So it'd be non-res, both resident and non-resident.
Okay. I mean, for the amount of tags that they're going to be giving out,
right,
you're better off going to a state where you're going to, have a little more availability.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't think. I know a lot of states will, allocate a certain percentage to resident versus non-resident. I'm not sure if they've gone that far down that process yet, but yeah, I mean, it's a target-rich environment it's a currently proposed and potentially like a pretty limited number of tags. Based off science, they would just adjust accordingly. The population data they receive as far as number of bears and successful harvest or otherwise, just like, again, every state agency managing any wildlife across the country, they're going to take the science they have and, make the best recommendations based off the science, not anything else, not emotion, not the loudest voice, but based off how to best manage that species. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, hopefully it gets approved, and then, how they move forward. Similar to New Jersey, they have, I guess theirs is a 5-year plan, but every year they're gathering more data, and through the hunt, they're getting even better data. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how they move forward, certainly with the vote, but then hopefully with a potential season, how that impacts, kind of management going forward as well.
Well, what do they think is going to be a manageable number?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what their target number is. That's actually a really good question. But I do know, going back to the harvest, most states, I guess, again, I mentioned West Virginia, New York, and Maine earlier. PA sticks out. Most states with like a really sizable bear population, and again, those populations in those states are way bigger, 15, 20,000 plus bears. Most states to stabilize growth rate, so that means like keep the population level, not go down obviously, but not go up. They aim for 20% harvest rate. So
okay.
If you think about, again, the 8187 based off of, over 4,000, less than 5%, that's not touching the population. It, again, may slow it down slightly. But yeah, I'm sure FWC has has a goal. I don't know off the top of my head. That's a good question. So they would try and manage it obviously to that goal.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said earlier, my hunting club, we had more bear than deer on the property, and here in New York, I've never seen so many bear in the woods.
Yeah. They're a species that adapts really well, and obviously doesn't have a lot or no, I guess, natural predators. So it is a interesting, great species to have in the landscape. It's a great conservation success story, in Florida or other places across the country. Louisiana, we just had we're seeing the restoration of the Louisiana black bear. SCI was very involved in the recovery of that species, as well as again a highly limited hunt in Louisiana. And they had 10 tags in year one. I think it went up ever so slightly. So they're again, managing this bear population in Louisiana based off the number of bears, where they are, the habitat, what it can hold. So, Louisiana, New Jersey, hopefully Florida, one day maybe Connecticut. We're seeing these states practice, sustainable use and practice this active management using science.
Well, they are a migratory animal. They are going to move, and they'll move with the food source.
Sure, sure.
But all right, well, I appreciate you taking the time and to share all this information. It's a huge topic. So, I think Florida should approve it.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the coming years, it'll become a regular part of their season, just like most other states.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, we're excited about the potential, and again, we're not certainly not advocating against any of the other like non-lethal, things. We don't think it's either or. We think it's kind of a both and. There are things that the general populace should do. That's if you live in the kind of the high bear density area, whether it's bear-proof trash cans or bear wise, or there's a lot of things there that are important, and those primarily address bear behavior. They have nothing to do with bear growth, population growth, one way or another. So we think it's a both and approach. We think the FWC has done a great job of putting this plan together, and has great data to back it up, and we're hopeful for the vote here in a few weeks. And like I said, we'll be there along with a lot of our conservation partners, some other SCI members there in person to, basically, again, thank the agency, the FWC, for what they've done, how they've done it, and encourage them to move forward and give that final approval.
Where can we find out more information about this?
They have a great website on the FWC. I want to say it's fwc.com/bears. I could be wrong, or Florida Black Bear. But they have a great kind of Florida Black Bear landing page that has literally everything. The data, but then, how we got here, historically, but then also, the commissioners asked to kind of get this ball rolling. And so after that would have been kind of like the end of 24. I think December 24, the commissioners asked for staff to provide all this information. So everything that they provided obviously is public. They had tons of public meetings, public engagement, public comments, really in-depth, kind of open Zoom meetings like this, but just for them to provide information to the public. So all those PowerPoints are available, super in-depth, way more in-depth as far as each individual bear management unit, the different characteristics of the population, where they are, how they decide on this 187 number. I mean, it's really good. They did a great job. So on the FWC website on black bears would probably be the most comprehensive place to find all the info.
All right. Well, I also receive the Safari Club International emails.
Yep.
It's always chock full of great information, and I've also had the Florida bear hunt information on there. So if you have not signed up for the newsletter, go to the SCI website. You can sign up for the newsletter and receive regular updates as well.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have kind of I appreciate you saying that. We'll definitely have the top line stuff, whether it's Florida again, or, maybe it's international stuff, or, stuff here in DC, or anywhere across the country. These hot button issues that impact hunting and our ability and freedom to hunt, it's going to be included there in the newsletter. And so, yeah, I would certainly encourage folks to sign up to be an SCI member, and then also get the newsletter just to see what we're doing. Kind of from our end on the advocacy side of things, certainly with our members on the ground, but then also from our SCI staff and even, SCI Foundation. I hadn't mentioned Maria Davidson yet, but she's our large carnivore specialist with Safari Club International Foundation. That's our kind of C3 side of things, but she's been involved with bears for most of her career, and is brilliant on this issue and has been involved, and she's part of the technical advisory group in Florida and things like that. So again, we've been heavily involved in Florida for a long time, and are very much invested and appreciate our members that are as well. And and we'll try to get out as much information as possible through those different sources.
All right. I appreciate you taking the time to speak to us again today. Definitely go to the SCI website. If you're not a member, definitely join. It's an organization that fights for your rights, so support them the way they support you. And if you have not subscribed to the American Outdoor News podcast, hit the subscribe button now, and we'll see you again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man.